2 months ago, I posted this video in which I came to the conclusion that the Foxy Go 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 minigame from FNAF 2 was retconned from the franchise. However, recently, the father of all theories, Mr. MatPat himself, posted a short to Game Theory discussing the same topic. In his short, he came to the conclusion that it was, in fact, the Save Him minigame that had a retcon, with the original him being the crying child and the new her being Charlie, daughter of Henry. In case you were interested, the link to this short should be in the description. In this video, I want to discuss Matt's theory, my own theory, and the clues that help reveal the answer to the retcon of FNAF. Let's start off with Matt's theory. To summarise again, he believes that the puppet was going to be the crying child, thus the Save Him minigame, but was later changed to Charlie. Now, we have to discuss one of the weirdest things in the FNAF franchise. Gender. Gender has been a weird middle ground in the FNAF franchise because we have the gender of the children and the gender of the animatronics. I've got a few examples for you where gender isn't exactly clear throughout the franchise. FNAF 1 Freddy is a male animatronic, and is presumably possessed by Gabriel, a male name. So why is he then seen in the girls' toilets in FNAF 1? Weak evidence, I know, but I have a far better example. Mangle, consistently referred to as both male and okay, maybe not. But the best example comes in FNAF 7, Ultimate Custom Night, where we are introduced to the one you shouldn't have killed, who is referred to as a he by the Mangle. Now, we know that this plot mysterious individual is Cassidy, who is definitely a female character. So, why is Cassidy then referred to as a he? Because Cassidy is possessing Golden Freddy, who is a male animatronic. Now, all of that is good and all, but it brings us back to the puppet. And it brings us to a question that I didn't think I would ever have to ask. But what gender is the puppet? If the puppet is a male character, then it has the potential to explain away the Save Him title. If the puppet is a female character, then Matt could be right on the money. Problem is, the puppet doesn't really have a gender. The Ultimate Guide doesn't give the puppet a gender whatsoever, so we have to just leave that line of searching there. The only other piece of evidence that goes against MatPat is the fact that he is suggesting that it was originally intended for William to kill his son as the first murder in the timeline. Now, let's look at the theory I made a few months ago. I speculated that the Foxy Go 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 minigame was the retcon, mainly because of the belief that there could not be a third group of 5 dead children possessing animatronics. And I'm right. However, I no longer believe that Foxy Go 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 was showing us a third group of murdered toddlers. It's showing us the missing children's incident victims. Now, I expressly call out in the last video that these kids cannot be the missing children's incident victims as they were killed in the back room, and their bodies would never be in the dining area. That is also still true. I believe that, in Scott's confusing way, he wanted to show us these dead children for a few reasons. The first was to show us that the killer of these kiddies was the same killer as the FNAF 2 murders, this unknown purple person. The second was to let us know that the missing children's incident happens at the FNAF 1 location. My reasoning for this comes largely off of the back of FNAF 2 theorizing back in 2015. FNAF 2 is a prequel of FNAF 1, set 6 years before it, but yet we still see that the FNAF 1 animatronics are possessed. At the time, this led many to speculate that there were 2 restaurants before FNAF 2. Fredbear's Family Diner, which is mentioned by name by the phone guy in FNAF 2, and an unnamed location at which the missing children's incident victims were killed. What we were missing in our understanding was that Foxy Go 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 was not showing us a third set of murders, but that it was telling us the location of this missing children's incident, this unnamed location, was a FNAF 1 location. So what's the answer? What's the FNAF retcon? Well, at this point, I've got no idea. The one answer that I had felt so confidently about 2 months ago, I've now disproven, but without a new theory to replace it. So, I started hunting. I started looking back through the first 4 games, where I knew this retcon lay. I focused my search on FNAF 2, where, for some strange reason, I had a sixth sense that told me that this was where the retcon lay. Not only had I found my original retcon in FNAF 2, but so had Matt. So, naturally, I found my retcon exactly where I wasn't looking, and somewhere I didn't think it would be. 5 Nights 4. Every FNAF theorist can safely say, except for Midnight Motorist and parts of Security Breach, that FNAF 4 is the most confusing and most troubling part of the timeline. This is because it is just incredibly unclear in what it is telling us. Sure, there was a bite in 1983, which likely was a simultaneous Springlock failure as mentioned in FNAF 3, and this bite probably shut down Fredbear's family diner, but what else does it mean? What does the Fredbear plush represent? What do the lines of "you're broken" and "I will put you back together" mean? What is the go with this empty girl's room and the broken Mangle doll? FNAF 4 created a lot of questions and not that many answers. And yet, for as absurd as it all sounds, I think I found an answer to most, if not all, of the questions that this game has. Is this necessarily what I was looking for in terms of a retcon? Not necessarily. Do I think I found the right answer? No. But I do believe that I might be on the right track here. So, here goes nothing. FNAF 4. The end of night cutscenes, in which we run around as a crying child, all take place in 1983. No complaints there. Crying child gets jumped. His older brother, apologetic and afraid of what he's done, never goes back to the location. He's not afraid of the animatronics or anything like that. He just has a sort of PTSD from killing his brother at this location, and so refuses to ever go back. After this incident, the puppet is introduced to Fredbear's as an additional security measure to protect Charlie, daughter of Henry. However, the puppet gets outplayed by a literal present, and Charlie becomes victim 1 of William. Skip a few years to 1985, and we've got the missing children's incident in the FNAF 1 location. By this point, William is starting to experiment with Remnant, but is unable to experiment on these children because he killed them in the middle of a restaurant full of security cameras. The cameras didn't see him commit the murders since they were in the off-camera safe rooms, but he couldn't take their bodies out of the room. So he had to hide them, which he does, shoving them in the suits, including the Fredbear suit that took his son's life. These murders shut down Freddy's, but William is eager to keep going on his quest to bring his son back. So, he creates his own robotics company and builds Funtime animatronics, with the brilliant idea to equip them with the tools to kidnap children and bring them back to William, giving him test subjects, as well as an alibi for all these kids going missing. However, whilst building these, he makes the mistake of building one of the children kidnapping ones in the image of his daughter, who's been living with her mother. She's allowed to come along to the opening, but gets too close to baby and gets herself scooped. The animatronics are then locked underground, where we find them in sister location. Michael visits them, getting himself scooped, and following Ennard's ejection, he starts having nightmares of himself as a child, with the haunting creations of Fredbear's and Freddy Fazbear's coming back for revenge against him. Now I understand that that was probably fast, and that I provided literally no evidence to back up the order of events that I just gave. And I'm not going to do it in this video. Whilst writing this script, I originally included all of the evidence and explanation for that timeline. But it made the script bulky, slow, and choppy. On top of that, it's not the point of the video. We're here to solve the retcon, not solve the longest held issue with this stupid timeline. But, don't worry. I'll be making a video, hopefully within the next month, explaining all of that order. As for now, I want to answer the question that is the purpose of this whole video. What is the FNAF Retcon? Well, it's the protagonist of FNAF 4. When FNAF 4 had been made, Scott had intended Dream Theory to be the conclusion to his 4-part game series, which culminated with the realization that this child, bitten by the golden Fredbear, had dreamt up all of the games as he was dying. However, following the confusion regarding the lore and the expansion of the 4-part game series into an even wider collection of games, this Dream Theory couldn't work anymore. So, Scott had to pivot. And he did, in a way that, true to his statement, had gone completely unnoticed by the community. He changed the protagonist, the person who we play as throughout FNAF 4, from Crying Child to Michael Afton. Now, I just want to be clear here because this can be confusing and we have gotten confused about this before. Crying Child is the child who gets bitten throughout the minigames, and Michael Afton is the older brother in the minigames who we play as during the gameplay sequences with the Nightmare animatronics in FNAF 4. I am not trying to say that Michael Afton is the Crying Child. We disproved that a few years ago. So, how was Scott going to show us this fundamental change? Where did he show us this retcon? Then, it clicked. The piece of evidence I had forgotten. The FNAF survival logbook was what I thought until I did some quick Google searches and found out that the survival logbook came out a long time after Scott posted his Reddit message. So much for that idea. And so, I'm feeling confident that I might have found the right answer, but I also have to acknowledge that the answer I have has a lack of decisive evidence. So, I've decided to give it my best shot. To be clear, I think that this is a bit of a stretch, but it's the best way I can try to explain my way through this new belief. In Scott's Reddit post, he includes an edit at the very bottom, in which he states that, quote, "If it, the retcon, had caused problems or confusion, then I would have addressed it here," end quote. He also states that the retcon was, quote, "integrated pretty seamlessly and most people didn't notice." This lines up 100% with the idea of Michael Afton being the bite victim, because basically no one would have noticed that subtle change. It was around the time of this post that Sister Location came out, and about 3 to 4 months later, most people were pretty happy with their theories on the game, which all said that they had no clue what was going on. Scott then decided that he needed to address this retcon, because it was causing a lot of confusion. But this was while Scott was making FNAF 6, a game in which, sure, he was working on tying up a lot of the loose ends of the series. And yet, for whatever reason, I agree that Scott couldn't have put any big or direct mention of FNAF 4 into Pizzeria Simulator. For a game that clearly was a nightmare or illusion, it wouldn't have made a lot of sense for a minigame to include critical answers to our questions, especially since we're playing, presumably, as Michael Afton in FNAF 6. Thus, it would have been a bit weird to see a story about ourselves in FNAF 6. So, Scott had to do something else instead. And in a book where he already intended the name of Golden Freddy, Cassidy, to be revealed, he decided that he would leave a cheek-a-beak level clue in its pages to solve the huge issue that was FNAF 4. Michael Afton, in his red writing pen, drawing an incredibly accurate Nightmare Fredbear. Too accurate to have been described to him, and proving that Michael has definitely seen the Nightmare animatronics. The retcon had been very seamless, as Scott had described. But it had been too seamless. So seamless, in fact, that he needed to steer people down the right path again. Something which his books have been doing for a pretty long time. So, there we have it. That's my answer. If you have any questions about the video, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to answer them. And make sure to check back again in 2 months when I inevitably decide that my answer is wrong and I make a third video about it. Oh, and also, thanks to Matt Pat and his entire game theory team. It was their short that caused me to revisit this topic, and it's because of their short that this video, as well as the next one, will be coming out. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all for the next video.